tadpole in the river, hatching underneath of a log. Tadpole in the river, hatching underneath of a log. Got too old to be a tadpole, turned into a natural frog. If a toad frog had wings, he would be flying all around. If a toad frog had wings, he would be flying all around. He would not have his bottom jumping, thumping on the ground. Every time I see a toad frog, Lord, it makes me cry. Every time I see a toad frog, Lord, it makes me cry. Make me think about my baby when he rolls them goo-goo eyes. That was Toad Frog Blues by Walter Beasley and Sylvester Weaver, recorded in 1925 or 1926. I'm playing a guitar tuned in Vestibal, and I'm playing Beasley's part, which is played with a bottleneck, but he does play behind his own singing, basically fingering and strumming chords in a very typical kind of boom-chang accompaniment. The chords that he uses are the tonic chord, if we look at the left hand, just played open with no fretting whatsoever. The 4 chord is played with the second finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string and the 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 3rd string. The 5 chord is played with the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string and the 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 3rd string. So when he's playing his accompaniment, he starts behind his singing with a simple strumming pattern. And a change to the 4 chord, a little anticipation here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes he'll throw in a bass note here on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. It functions as the 7th of the 1 chord. And again, you could just do bass note, strum, bass note, strum. A little anticipation now into the 4 chord. Back to the 1. The bass notes here are he'll play a bass run sometimes at this point to get himself kind of just a little movement back into the 1 chord. And it works off the open 5th string. And it runs up the scale to the open 4th string. Strum into the 5 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the 4 chord. Back to the 5 chord. Then a little turnaround lick. The bottleneck solo is notable for being played very freely without any bass notes behind his bottleneck playing. And he only really plays halfway through the chorus. He plays about halfway through and then lets Weaver take over. He starts with a slide up to the 7th fret and is played rhythmically very freely. I'll describe the notes. I won't try to count them out for you, but I will describe where they're played on the neck. So this, if you look at the left hand, it's a slide up to the 7th fret. and he kind of releases it and slides down. And then runs up to the 12th fret and does a run that starts on the 12th fret, worries the 3rd, and ends up on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. So it goes from the 12th fret of the 1st string to the 9th fret, 7th fret, then this kind of between the 3rd and 4th frets, ending up on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. Let me try that a little more up to speed. So. The next run starts at the 10th fret of the 1st string, goes down to the 9th fret to the 7th fret, and then it's really rhythmically loose down here at the 3rd fret as he kind of works his way back to the tonic note. So let's try that. So once he's here, he just kind of uses this particular note to just punctuate rhythmically until Weaver comes in. That's basically the end of his solo. And from that point on, Weaver takes over. And Beasley just plays the rest, basically the rest of his verse accompaniment behind Weaver's more involved part. So what we could do here is take a look at the split screen and play that.
Okay, so I suspect that at this point you've already figured out that Frank and I switched guitars from the ones we were playing in Piledriver Blues. And I'm now playing my guitar tuned essentially in standard tuning, but a whole step low, just where Frank was playing it for Piledriver Blues. Playing out of an E position, did Sylvester Weaver on this song. And if you look at the intro on this, if we focus on the left hand for a moment, okay, so you can see that Weaver is starting out in E. And I like to do a little partial E to begin with because he's working on this 2nd fret of the 2nd string a lot out of his E. He's not striking the 5th string at all as he begins this intro. And so I find it easier to finger that 2nd fret of the 2nd string with my ring finger than to finger a full E and use my little finger. It gets a little cramped. So he goes from that E, gets that note, anticipates his A7, okay, you can see he was using the A7, then he used the barred note on the 1st string, and you just sort of dab your little finger down there for a moment to get that 5th fret of the 2nd string. Then you return to E. Now this time you need to be in a full E because he is going to play that 2nd fret of the 5th string in the bass. So it'll be like this. And he's just going to walk down from the open first string to the second fret, or excuse me, the third fret of the second string to the second fret of the second string to the open, and then hammer with the index. So it's like, okay. So that's Weaver's intro. Now, as he goes into the verse, he stays in this full E position. And one of the things that's a little bit tricky in a way about figuring out this song or thinking about it is that Walter Beasley is playing these neat little bass runs, and he's spare. And sometimes when you first listen to it, you kind of go, well, shoot, is Weaver getting this or is Beasley? But it sounds like to me, as he begins both the verse and the solo, that Weaver is playing what you might say halftime in his bass. He hits the open sixth string on the first beat of the measure, then he gets that second fret of the fifth string on the third beat. So it's like this: 1, 2, and 3, 4. And now he goes to an A7 you don't hear used a whole lot in this music, one that's fingered at the second fret of the second and fourth strings. Usually it seems like people use that barred A7, but he anticipates it on the third string, and so you get this sound. Then he returns to E on the and of 4 to the E partial, and he plays this little ascending run starting with a hammer on the third string. Then you come down with your second finger there that's been fretting the second fret of the fourth string, get the second fret of the fifth string, and you're going to reef on this second fret of the first string. And then you're returning to your E partial, and on the and of 4, you're going to pinch that open second string, hammer with your ring finger to the second fret, and then you come up and pinch the open first string and the second fret of the fourth string on the first beat of this measure, 1, and now you get an E7th here. And so it's a reasonably unusual fingering of an E7, but when you see it from time to time, John Hurt did something like this in Candyman, and I've seen Bill Brunsey do it too. But you end up with your second finger getting that second fret of the fourth string, your index the first fret of the third, your ring finger the third fret of the second, and your little finger up there at the fourth fret of the first string. Now, as it goes into the 4 chord, which for me is A7th, at least fingered like A7th, conventional, this is where Walter Beasley is playing those little bass runs in anticipation of the 4 chord. So he's coming in like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. And so what Weaver does, he kind of does a little counterpunch to that. And what he does is, immediately following that pitch, the one that lands on the beat, he gets these top 3 strings in the A7th and does a little grace note pull-off with the second finger. So it's like this: 2, 3, 4, bum, bum, pull off, pull off, pull off. And then he holds that position for the 4th beat and just goes, once again, dabbing down that little finger at the 5th fret of the 2nd string to open string. Then back to E. Now he comes up and he does, I'm getting the 4th fret of the 1st and 3rd strings. We're using my little finger and my ring or 3rd finger to fret the 3rd string. Now I come back down here. Now I suspect I may be doubling Beasley's note in the bass there, but it just sounds so darn good. I'm not going to worry about it too much. So you're getting that 2nd fret of the 5th string with your index finger, the third fret of the third string with your ring finger or third finger, and the second fret of the second string with your second finger. And then you go to what looks like a D7, but it has a beautiful sort of sound to it. In this context, it almost sounds minor, you know, and in fact, you know, functionally, it has some really kind of highfalutin function like an A minor sixth or a B7 flat 9. But in any event, you finger it the same as a D7. Then you bounce up with your bass back to E partial. And you do a little hammer here with the index at the first fret of the third string. And then you come down. So that's his verse accompaniment. Now for the solo accompaniment, he starts fundamentally the same as what he did behind the verse. He's in E, he's playing half time in the bass, just hitting first and third beats on the E chord and the A7 that it goes to 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. And now he stays pretty darn plain when he returns to E. And 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. Now he goes to the 4 chord, and he's going to an A7 like this. On the downbeat, he does this big thumb brush. He does this kind of big flourish, and he goes 1, 2. And you can see in the left hand, that's notable for, once again, being in the A7th, coming off, getting that barred second fret on the first string, dabbing that little finger down at the 5th fret of the second string. Then back to your E partial, this hammer on the 3rd string with the index coming up. Once again, the second finger goes to the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and you do these bends at the 2nd fret of the 1st string. Okay, then he's going to walk up into the B7th chord. And here's a point where Beasley's taking care of the bass, and he just sort of relegates the treble to Sylvester Weaver. And so it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now he starts beats 1 and 2 of this measure with 2 triplets. The first will go from open 2nd string to 2nd fret of the 2nd string to open 1st string. Then this, okay. Then another triplet, which will be the 2nd fret of the 1st string, go to the open 1st string. Then another triplet, 3rd fret of the 1st string going to 2nd fret to open. Then back to 2nd fret of the 2nd string, going between that and the 1st string in a triplet. So those 4 triplets. Okay, and then this concluding run is triplet, band, and D. Now, a couple of things that pertain to this, and we'll look at my right hand in a moment, but not right now. Just before we finish talking about the left hand, one thing you may wonder is like, wow, why would somebody tune a guitar a whole step low and play out of E, you know, play with somebody else in Vestipole? Well, in the style of music, it's customary to tune to your singing voice. And I venture to say that Walter Beasley, you know, singing in D, that was kind of his kitchen, that was his comfort zone. And so, you know, you tune to show the singer to the best advantage. And we're fortunate in that it's a real good singing key for Frank, too. So the other thing is, one of the actual advantages of tuning low for the Sylvester Weaver guitar part, at least, is if you notice, he's doing lots of bends there at the second fret of the first string. Well, when you got the guitar tuned to pitch, it's pretty darn tight, that close to the nut, and it's a little unforgiving in terms of doing those extreme bends at the second fret. So just having the guitar tuned a whole step low and a little slack definitely makes it easier to do bends, especially while you're holding a portion of a chord with the rest of your left hand. So now let's take a look at the right hand. And we won't go over this in great detail, but I will say that one thing that is unusual about Sylvester Weaver that you can hear in his playing, we're accustomed to hearing many people in this style play, many or most in fact, thumb and index. And it's a great style for power and runs and versatility. Sylvester Weaver seems like he had like to emphasize chords. And so he's one of the few people I can think of, Bo Carter's another, who played with thumb and three fingers. And you can really hear it when you listen to the original recording of Toad Frog that'll appear on your disc with this lesson. So when he's doing that, he tends to set things up so that his ring finger in the right hand is living on the first string, his second finger plucks the second string, his index plucks the third string, and his thumb roams around in the bass. So I'm just going to play a little bit of the intro. So, and he's using that style very much, so you can observe the right hand to see how Sylvester Weaver employed thumb and three fingers in his picking. So I'll just count myself in 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so that gives you some insight into Sylvester Weaver's picking, I should say, using thumb and three fingers. So we'll take a brief pause here and then we'll return and do the split screen version of Sylvester Weaver's part.
If a toad frog had wings, he would be flying all around. If a toad frog had wings, he would be flying all around. He would not have his bottom thumping, thumping on the ground. And now we'll do a split screen version of Toad Frog Blues with both of us playing.